Good afternoon. This is Jessica Pinkerton. Thank you for joining today's flash webinar, Fire Suppression 101. I work with member services here on the NSTA team. Before we get started, I'd like to go through just a few housekeeping items. I've unmuted all of our attendees, so please feel free to ask questions as we move through the webinar today. You do have the ability to mute yourself on your end should you need to reduce background noise. We'll move through as we do, and again, ask questions. You'll notice on the webinar command center, there's an option to type questions. So if you're not feeling like you want to speak today, certainly we'll be keeping an eye out for any questions that come through the question box. We have the pleasure of having Jeff Krueger of Fogmaker to present on Fire Suppression 101 today. Jeff is the Director of Product Development and Field Service for Fogmaker North America, located in Exton, Pennsylvania. In 2009, he joined USSC Group, bringing his 20-plus years of automotive engineering experience and leadership to Fogmaker North America and the many extreme duty use markets it serves. Since joining Fogmaker, he's led the engineering, quality, and field service teams for Fogmaker. He's now focused on continuing to improve safety in multiple markets where applicable by working with industry leaders, testing standards, state boards, and servicing customers to ensure proper installation and use of automatic fire suppression systems. With that, I'd like to hand the webinar over to Jeff and welcome Jeff today. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. So we'll go through the presentation at a top level and then have room for questions along the way and then again at the end. Basically, as we look at what we're going to discuss, I'm going to give an overview of what Fogmaker North America, who we are, what we're about, the Fogmaker product and where we apply it, both in North America and globally. And then we'll get into a system overview with regards to our system and how that ties to current automatic fire suppression systems, certifications that are applicable, life cycle process in terms of service and inspection, and then there's a detailed appendix if we need to get into any of the detailed componentry. So as Fogmaker North America, we're here located in Exton, Pennsylvania, which is about 45 minutes northwest of downtown Philadelphia. The facility is a facility that houses everything within our USSC group. Within USSC group, we do seating products for military, fire and ambulance, transit, and rail. And then we also do the Fogmaker fire suppression system, servicing many of the same customer base. The mission and our promise that you see here is very clear and heavy focused with regards to the extreme duty markets I was mentioned, and then providing safety and survivability products within those markets. With regards to the Fogmaker product line, we've brought that product line over from Sweden. There's about 150,000 systems now in use around the world. Again, automatic fire suppression systems, fully automatic, and I'll get into that in a second with the details of it, but those systems are applied worldwide with roughly 75% plus of that 150,000 being in the bus industry, both school bus, transit bus, and so forth. You see here we are standard on Volvo and Mercedes buses throughout Europe. They were really one of the key drivers with the system for the last 25 years when the system was first developed over in Sweden. And then we brought it to North America here about 10 years ago and still work hand in hand with our team in Sweden, developing products to be worldwide use and a North America centric with regards to North America specifications that you can see listed at the bottom of the page there. The applications that we apply our fire suppression system on is varied. As I mentioned, majority are within the school bus and transit bus markets. But you can see here images of many other markets. And the reason that we show this is twofold. First and foremost is to show that there is not a single industry that can't be managed. Every industry has their own unique challenges, but we've been successful in every industry we've put the product into. And secondly, as we get into the core components of the system, the elements that help us to detect the fire, elements that help us on the suppressing of the fire, every one of these industries is covered by the same core components. So lessons that we learn in regards to construction or agriculture, mining, some of the extreme heavy duty use impact us even in the world of school bus and help make the product better for everybody. When we look at school buses as a whole, we're well over 1,000 installs now. We're approaching close to 2,000 installs, and we'll be there here in the next month or two. And as you see here, those installs are on numerous different school bus types. So over the last several years, we've been working with all the major OEMs and all the body types that they produce. So we have kits for each individual OEM that will apply to their different vehicles from Type A's to Type D's, and also cover various fuel sources, including CNGs, propanes, and regular gasoline. And we're also doing stuff with the electric bus coverages as well. When we talk about what we cover, in each of these buses, our systems are set up such that we cover the engine compartment. So the coverage is 100% of the engine compartment. And then we offer options where we will cover battery boxes or other exterior electrical sources. When you talk about fire suppression and you see the acronym up top, Automatic Fire Suppression Systems with the AFSS, really one of the key questions is, well, why? Why is there a need? Obviously, in all industries, and school buses no different, we're challenged daily in regards to where the money's spent specific to safety type products. So why should you even apply that money towards fire suppression systems? Well, I think one of the key pieces that is a driver and helps put reality to it is this study that you see here. It's deemed the Volpe report. It was done by the United States Department of Transportation. It's a 10-year study that was initially kicked off focusing on motor coach fires, and it quickly migrated that study over to school bus fires. And as you see, there's some pretty incredible statistics that come out of it that are very eye-opening and have really driven a lot of governmental offices in terms of change and helping to push the use forward. And of those, the bullet points, the first one is really significant. Up top, it shows 380 reported fires per year on average over that 10-year period. And again, it states 380 and states clearly that that is only reported fires, those that are insurance claims or need a road call. They do not capture anything that is covered and captured with self-insured areas and or done within the lot. So that number is probably 3 to 5 times higher. But even at that 380, as you can see, it is a significant amount on average with school buses and those fires that are impacting the livelihood of our children being taken in the buses on a daily basis. When it talks about the recommendations of those, the outcome, basically they really break it down into 3 chunks. They talk about maintenance of the buses, they talk about inspections of the buses, training, and then the other one is regarding design. And the US DOT came out with their recommendation off the study that they do recommend that automatic fire suppression systems are included on all motor coaches and school buses as they go forward. So that is where a heavy push is from. It is very data driven, and then there's more going on with that behind the scenes as we speak. You can see besides the concern from a fatality or injury standpoint, even on the dollar side, it's a significant dollar impact. On average, $25,000 to $30,000 per incident to repair those buses if everything's captured with no issue beyond the bus itself. We look at a couple other things. This was a presentation done this past year with the state directors in November, and again, focus heavy on that report that we just showed. Talked about the recommendations of training. So with regards to training, some of the things that have been done, you see the image here in the bottom right. It's a training that was done in Virginia with 200 plus drivers in attendance, where they actually did a live fire demo and showed that with the bus starting fire in the footwell area coming through the engine compartment, once it broke into that compartment, it was less than 60 seconds. The entire bus was engulfed in smoke. That was an incredibly eye-opening event for those 200 plus drivers. And then they did a training session with everybody in the conference room afterwards. Another major training session that was done this past fall was with the NTSB and NAPT event that NAPT organized with regards to doing some, again, live fires. You can see in this image up here on the left where they took a Type D bus, started the fire at the same time with another Type D bus parked parallel to it, where they had 30 volunteers, i.e. adults that were in the audience, sitting at Boston. At the time that they started the fire, the 30 folks had to evacuate out the rear door. They timed it. It was roughly about a minute before the full bus was engulfed in smoke. With 2 minutes, the whole thing was engulfed in flames. On the evacuation side, it was really just slightly over a minute that everyone was able to get out the first time when they did it as it unbuckled. The second time, they actually had everybody get back in and do it again, buckled and eyes closed to simulate not being able to see. Obviously, they didn't have the true element of panic, but even with that, it did increase the time substantially, and that raises the question with more and more folks going to use of seatbelts, what needs to be done to protect, because in this case, it took that evacuation time 2.5 minutes with these adults, I mean, non-fire atmosphere. So very concerning is obviously with the time that smoke engulfed, that would have been far too late. So those are some really good training sessions, and both available for folks to use, and both key references to show the impact of a fire. When it comes to maintenance and inspections, we went through that, had some good recommendations based on past fires. A lot of maintenance focus with regards to some simple things like battery box grommets. You can see here where there's a failure, creates a dead short in the battery box and kicks off a fire right there in the box itself. Others with regards to P-clamps, hoses, and so forth. And then just really driving that process of inspections and investigations. With regards to what we have going on specifically in the world of fire suppression, one of the big things that was released 1.5 years ago is with National Express, where National Express made the decision that all new school buses starting January of 2017 would be protected with fire suppression systems, and they'd be protected with our Fogmaker system. So as of that date, we've been going and doing retrofits on every single new school bus put in production, and it has been going incredibly well, and really seeing the benefit of that from the National Express side. So that's an overview on why fire suppression system, why should the discussion even be to put money towards it in the school bus industry. Next, I'm going to run a video here that's about 1.5 minutes long to give you a good overview of how the system works. Any system that's out there typically has these same 3 key elements. You have a means to detect the fire, a means to suppress it, and then some means to monitor the system to make sure it's working. So I'm going to show you here specifically towards our Fogmaker system why we believe we have the best product in the industry, and how we monitor the system, how we suppress only from a mechanical standpoint, requiring no electrical, and how we suppress to cover all elements of the fire triangle, so we make sure not only to take the fire, but keep it suppressed and ultimately keep it from having a reflash event. So we'll run this video here.
The demand for harder working, hotter running gas and diesel engines is driving the need for reliable protection of operators, passengers, valuable assets, and the environment against engine and equipment compartment fires. Fogmaker North America is meeting this challenge with proven fire suppression technology that only the Fogmaker system can deliver. Elementary in its composition, yet complex in the way it outmaneuvers attempts to suppress it. Fire is dependent on 3 resources to start and sustain itself: a source of fuel, oxygen present in the air we breathe, and heat or source of ignition. Fogmaker's highly effective technology was designed from the ground up to disrupt all 3 sides of this fire triangle simultaneously. Designed and engineered within an exceptionally small footprint, installation of the Fogmaker is straightforward and is made up of 3 component groups: fire detection components, the activation and suppression delivery system, and a system status display. The mechanism for detecting and activating a Fogmaker system during a thermal event is by means of the automatic and fail-safe pneumatic tube detection system. Field-proven and extremely reliable, the pressurized detection tube system does not rely on electrical sensors, removing the possibility of false readings. When the surrounding air reaches and sustains a very specific high temperature, the hydropneumatic detection tube will rupture and depressurize. The loss of pressure within the detection tube triggers the release valve located on the head of the piston accumulator to open. Suppressant instantly fills the hydraulic hoses, pipes, and nozzles, reaching the nozzles, The pressurized suppressant ejects the protective caps covering the heads. High pressure and an array of precisely engineered nozzles work together to dispense a dense fog of fire suppressant as atomized droplets. Fogmaker liquid fire suppressant is a precise mixture of pure water and an environmentally responsible, non-toxic AFFF agent. Delivery of this mixture under high pressure to the patented Fogmaker nozzles is key to the system's effectiveness. Each microscopic droplet rapidly absorbs heat as it expands into a vapor. Collectively, they create a massive exchange of heat that can lower the ambient temperature in an engine compartment fire by over 1,300 degrees in just 10 seconds. As water in the suppressant absorbs heat, it expands into steam. 1 liter of suppressant can expand into 1,700 liters of dense water vapor, displacing needed oxygen. As the Fogmaker discharges suppressant, it coats surfaces with AFFF aqueous film-forming foam, choking out any remaining chance for the fuel source to supply the fire. Fogmaker is fully capable of protecting assets in industries like transportation.
So to recapture that, when we talk about, again, the 3 elements of a system, you have a means to detect a fire, and as you saw in that video, our means to detect is 100% mechanical, so we have 0 electrical input. And we do that with the intent of a few things. With it being mechanical, we have protection 24 hours a day. You know, we don't require any sort of battery backup. So we are protecting that vehicle, whether it's out on the road or whether it's sitting in the bus barn at night or during holidays. Also, it's fail-safe. If there is going to be an issue, it's actually going to fire the system off versus the opposite, being a worst case, being it may be an accident or some other needs where the electrical is cut and then the system can't activate because you have no electrical input. Being mechanical makes us fail-safe that way. When we talk about the suppressant side, we focus on that being really a major element of our system as well, because it is water mist, as you saw. And with the water mist design, it's high pressure in our bottle, but low pressure coming out the nozzles. And as you saw in those atomized droplets, such that the water mist gives us the best chance to not only suppress the fire by choking out that oxygen instantly, but also preventing reflash by after the oxygen returns. We're in that process, we take the heat out and we cool the engine in other areas. So we cool it beyond the point that if you had a continued leak of a hydraulic fluid or a fuel or anything else, we don't care because there's no heat left to bring that fire back. And as you saw, we also have that 3% AFFF, which coats the system or coats the engine compartment. So we blanket that fuel source. And lastly, as I mentioned, we don't have electrical input, but we do provide electrical output. So we have electrical sensors going from pressure switches up to a monitor that's in the driver's compartment. So at all times, you can make sure that the system's functioning fine. It notifies the operator if there is a fault or maintenance personnel. And then most importantly, it does notify if there is a fire and kicks over to fire evacuate with the audible and the visual alarm. So those are really the 3 primary elements. Again, I talked about the fire triangle. I can't overemphasize that. We firmly believe that it's critical when specifying a fire suppression system, that you want to make sure that it does not only take out one leg of the triangle. Other systems might take out just oxygen as an example, but they don't do anything to cool. I think we propose that all systems really should focus on taking out all 3 legs, so that we have the best benefit to keep it from reflashing. There's some other videos here. I think I'll probably move forward through this. If there's questions, I can go back and show the videos, but these videos basically show an engine fire and how we take care of that engine fire in a poorly maintained engine, such that we ensure that, again, we can capture the fire and take it out. The image down here shows with the fuel source and AFFF, how we basically blanket that surface and block it totally. when we talk about how do you prove out a system and make sure that the system meets the needs of yourselves and our customers and users, there's many different specifications that are out there that have been written around fire suppression systems. We spend a lot of time and energy testing to those standards. So there's a UL, ULC standards. There's PMARC, which some states do define. That's a standard driven. That was meant to be an international standard for all bus engines. There are other standards that are being worked on. Probably the biggest one is this one in the middle called Factory Mutual FM. It's a heavy duty mobile equipment. And that one would be applicable for school buses and anything else on the road. And that test is still in process. When we did our UL testing, UL focuses heavy on the safety of the system, making sure that not only does the system do its job, in our case, detect and suppress a fire, but that the components of the system are safe. So there's well over 100 tests that were done to prove out the components of the system, both at low temperatures, high temperatures, vibration type testing, salt spray type testing, and various other tests to make sure that we are not causing harm with applying the product. So we are UL listed. We're also ULC listed. Factory Mutual, as I mentioned, is a very challenging test protocol where they had a series of testing set up both for engine fires as well as for actual nozzle tests. And those tests have been 100% tested and passed from our side. Now we're going through the remaining component level testing similar to UL with some of the component testing to get the full certification in place. The PMARC I mentioned, this was set up over in Europe, driven to be an international standard. 50 countries around the world have made it their international standard. North America has not. They still deem it to be a little bit too aggressive of a test mandate. But that being said, we do like the test protocol because it does depict a large engine compartment, and there's various testing done to simulate what they call hidden fires, high load fires, fires with no airflow to fires with high airflow, and a variety of others. And we've tested to those, passed, and have been certified. And not only have we tested and passed, but we've been certified to having a system that had zero reflash. So again, as I mentioned, with the heat, one of the tests, they have a hot manifold that's run through the engine compartment, and you have to take the fire out and keep it out for 45 seconds before it reflashes and comes back as they continue to spray diesel fluid on its hot pipe. Many products have a time. They show at 50 seconds or 60 seconds the fire came back. Our Fogmaker system had an infinite symbol because at the end of 2 minutes, they stopped the test as there was no residual heat left as we cooled the compartment completely and therefore had zero reflash. So that's with regards to the performance. The other side of the system is with regards to, again, what happens from the other aspect. How do we make sure we're not causing harm or causing headaches for the end users? With the push of our system being mechanical, our goal is to eliminate any and all false activations. That being said, there's still potential. It's much, much lower, but there is still potential. And this little video here is just a video we created to show the difference between a water mist system and a powder-based system. Because some people are familiar with powder and they have a lot of concerns with putting fire suppression systems in because of that. So this depicts the mechanic doing something that accidentally discharges the system, the powder on the left, water mist on the right. They do something to trip the system. See on the left, the powder comes flying out very quickly and does what it does intensely, which is comes out strong and fast to displace the oxygen. After about 15 seconds, the powder is done spraying. So now at that point in time, there's no more powder being discharged, so we speed up the clock. Because as you see, is all the residual powder that then gets into the atmosphere and the air around it and creates a significant mess and a significant challenge, especially if that goes off in your shop where there's other buses and other folks. Many times people have to take the shop out of service until they go through and clean everything up, which can be quite challenging. With the water mist, as you see on the right, in this case, which would be very indicative of a Type D rear engine bus, we spray for about 60 seconds. And as you see in the image, the residual is basically water, mist laying around the area of coverage. So in this case, the engine compartment. As you noted, when the operator mechanic got out of there, he didn't get harmed. I mean, you can have, again, your hand right up against the nozzle, it's low pressure coming out. Once it sprays, it is completely environmentally friendly. So all we require is a power wash to wash everything down, because we do contain the salt element to keep it from freezing. So you power wash it and you're done. There's nothing else beyond that at all. So it's very clean, very easy should there be any kind of activation in the shop or even out on the road. With regards to the process of how we go about the installations, we do a couple of things. Basically, as I mentioned, those 9 kits up front for school bus specifically. Every time we have a new installation, we send out a Fogmaker direct, one person from our engineering group. They go out and they do a risk assessment and a first fit. They analyze the exact application. They define where we're going to run our detection line, where we're going to run our suppression line, where we're going to place nozzles, what we're going to target with the nozzles, where we're going to mount the piston accumulator. That all then gets defined, and then that gets released as a kit for that application. That then is documented and released internally, such that when we have another install of that same vehicle, we can drive that specific kit. And that kit comes complete with everything pre-built. So all the detection lines are pre-built. The stainless steel lines are pre-built, both cut, bent on our 3D bender, such everything's exact measurements and exact fit. And then it's basically provided with a set of instructions for install that's given to any of our certified field service technicians that then can go out and do the installation for that vehicle. We've done that both at the OEM, as option 1 shows, where we've trained the various OEMs. We've given them on-site training and then certified their installers so that they can do the installs at their specialty shops. They can purchase the kits, which they have. They purchase the kits direct. They install them direct, and the bus can be shipped with units completely installed. The other process, option 2, is doing an aftermarket and retrofit. We've done a significant amount of those systems as well. As I mentioned, probably 1,000 plus that way. We've done Mobile County Schools put out a public bid, which we were awarded for their special needs buses, and that has buses going back as early as 2003, or as late as 2003, I should say, where we've gone out and retrofitted those older buses on site at their facility and then go back in and certify them. So either of those processes can be followed and be executed. Once the install is complete, then it's on to the life cycle side of it. So life cycle wise is very straightforward with our system. We basically have a daily check, which is a simple check of the alarm panel, which they can put right in their daily pre-trip inspections. And it's a simple check of the alarm panel just to show if the system shows green, system okay. Then others will place on a weekly, monthly, or after X hours of service time, a 15-minute check, which again is very straightforward. It's a quick check of the bottles just to make sure there's no visual leaks. And then we go to the annual inspections. The annual inspections take roughly 1 hour per bus. And the annual inspection is, because the system's mechanical in nature, the inspection is very mechanical in nature. So it's a walk through the entire system to verify, again, that there's no leaks, that there's no loose clamps, loose brackets, nozzles that have been pulled or replaced and are missing, changes within the engine that we know have something blocking the nozzle, verifying that the piston accumulator, everything is good with regards to those mounts and so forth. That again is a 1 hour per year inspection. And then at 5 years, we do a changing of the fluid, because it's got a 5-year life, so that's about 2 to 3 hours per unit. And then at 10 years, the piston accumulator itself needs to be changed out due to DOT regulations and needing to be hydrostatically tested. So all that is done is very clean, straightforward. We offer various packages where we offer a package that many have taken, where we do all that work ourselves with our field service group, who is certified to do any of the service calls, inspections, 5-year services, etc. Along with that can be offered an extended warranty. Others have their end users. They may want to be trained, pending how many units they buy. So we have many end users that we've trained so they can do their own inspections. Some have even taken on their own service work as well. And that's all, again, different offerings with different packages that can be provided. And lastly, just to wrap up, key points, we talk about the proven technology. I think it's critical when we talk about the number of systems, performance with regards to attacking the fire triangle complete, trying to take out every leg of that triangle, environmentally focusing on the environmental cleanliness of the system itself, such at time of deployment, there is no needs of special handling, special needs to evacuate the area, etc. Detection outputs, again mentioned our loss of pressure tubing. We do provide various outputs if people want different means or different activation points on school buses today. Nobody's requested, and matter of fact, most state laws are written around the use of a mechanical activation as a secondary for fear of children potentially tampering with it and activating the system. But that is an offering if folks do want it. And then the server side, again, being a very clean process. So that covers the top level of the system and Fire Suppression 101. Beyond that, we've got a whole bunch of slides that go into much more detail of our system, our components. As I mentioned, if we want to go back and look at any of the other slides or any other videos, we can do that as well. So I guess at this time, we open it up to any questions or further review.
All right, I'm taking a look. I don't see any questions that have come through the question box. I find it very eye-opening. I know for myself that a bus can be engulfed in flames in just about a minute, Jeff. That's certainly something that I wasn't aware of, and I learned through your presentation today. So I think that's incredible. And then it takes almost a minute for adults to evacuate a bus. But then on the other side, how wonderful it is to have access to technology and a fire suppression system like you guys offer that can detect and suppress it. So if we don't have any other questions, I can work to wrap up the webinar. As Jeff mentioned, there are other videos. We can certainly share that information in a follow-up email if you'd like to request those. We will have this webinar available on a recording as well. So if this is something you'd like to share with other members within your staff, please do let us know. We'd be happy to forward that on. Thank you so much, Jeff, for taking the time today to share about your fire suppression system.
No, absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Yes, it was very eye-opening. There was a lot of information. I've not heard this webinar before, so you did a wonderful job sharing that.
Thank you.
For all others attendees, there will be a brief survey that we'll ask you to take. It'll take just about a minute to leave us your feedback. Feedback helps us ensure our sessions are useful and continue to hold value for our webinars. Our next Flash webinar is scheduled for May 14th. And this will be covering NSTA member benefits. So we'll be going through a list of our member benefits and some new member benefits that we'll be announcing at that time as well. So please stay tuned, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for that. Registration for this webinar is available through our newsletter on our Facebook page and via our email reminders. One other announcement I'd like to make before we head off today is next week's our Capitol Hill Bus-In, and this year's Bus-In topic will focus on illegal passing of stopped school buses, as well as to generate support for Rep. Jackie Wolarski legislation directing National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to evaluate the landscape and recommend best practices in relation to illegal passing. So while the deadline for the registration has passed, please do keep an eye out for communication in the coming weeks on how you can continue advocacy through grassroots efforts in your backyard. Thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you on our next webinar and hope everyone has a nice day. Take care.